In this episode, I'm going to be playing with fire and courting controversy. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? My name is Michael Sahno, and welcome to the Sea and Land Fitness Podcast, brought to you by Sea and Land Fitness. If you want programs and gear to begin your military fitness journey, then head on over to Sea and Land Fitness's website, www.sandlfit.com. That's sandlfit.com. All right. Hey, that was about the third take of trying to get the intro made. And I did it. Now I'm a little off. That is the biggest understatement of the century, probably. I'm a little bit off because of what this episode's about. Hold on, let me have a sip of coffee. Peter Madeira, this is for you. All right, so I said I'm going to be playing with fire and courting controversy with this episode. And if you're watching it on YouTube, you've checked the thumbnail, and you got bait clicked right into it. So I guess I'll just come out and say it. So for the past 9 months, up until last Friday, not this Friday, I'm actually filming this on Friday, up until last Friday, or was it the Friday before? I think it actually was the Friday before. I was on Wegovy. Okay. My doctor, who is my cardiologist, so just to give you guys a little bit of background, I was 296 pounds and I was floating over a lot of it, over 300, a lot of the time that I was overweight. There were, I think, even times when I got up to 325. I'm 6 foot, in between 6'1", 6'2". So I'm a pretty big guy, and I'm not. So just to give you an example, and I'm not saying I'm the same build or anything like that, but you have these things called body types. Okay. And the body types are generally categorized so we can recognize who has more fat, who has lower body center of gravity, all kinds of stuff. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's for biomechanical purposes, and it's so that we can understand locomotion, our walking day to day, and whether we're doing it correctly or incorrectly. So to give you an example of someone who is very large and very heavy and muscularly dense, The Rock, I think his weight is 260 pounds. Okay. So he's a big boy. He's got huge legs. He's got a huge back, big shoulders. He has a lot of muscle mass on his skeletal structure, on his bones. He's carrying a lot of muscles. So I told you I was 296 pounds. So if you go back and watch earlier episodes, of this podcast on YouTube, you'll see my face is pretty large. I was on it for 9 months. I was going to be on it for a year. And I'll explain why I came off of it a little bit early. I was on it for 9 months. I now weigh 264 pounds. So I lost about 32 pounds on it over 9 months, which is a very good weight loss over time. That's and I'm not patting myself on the back like, wow, you had a really good weight loss. What I'm saying is I lost a pound here, a pound there, a pound there. But I also have a background in sports science. I'm a sports scientist. I have which gives me a background in nutrition, a background in sports psychology. And I was a psych minor in my undergrad. Okay. So I have an understanding of behavior. And actually it's really kind of funny because, and this is where I go kind of on a little bit of a segue here. Not too far. So behavior is there's these two warring camps in psychology: cognition, which is our thinking, what we do, what we know, how we know it, and then there's behavior. And these two warring factions think that cognition has supremacy or behavior has supremacy. I'm in the behavior camp. um and just to give you an idea, the cognition, the thinking, and I'm trying to put this into as layman's terms as possible because it really can. You get some stupid terms and people go, what are you talking about? So cognition is our ability to form thoughts, conceive thoughts, be creative, do all that stuff. Higher level brain function. And that is in the front of the brain, in the upper part of the brain, whereas behavior, and I am seriously dumbing this down, because you'll go into the weeds. Behavior tends to be more lower brain. We call it our amphibian brain. Some people call it the mammalian brain. I don't agree with that term, but your amphibian brain, your sympathetic, parasympathetic, fight or flight, all that stuff. Those areas of the brain, I think, lock in to why we do the things we do. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because Wegovy sort of attacks that. All right. There are a ton of videos where you can find the mechanisms, find out how it works. I'm going to touch on some of that information, but overall, I'm just going to talk about my journey and what I went through on Wegovy. So 9 months ago, I took it. I weighed 296 pounds. I had just come down to 296 from, I think, being 306 or 302. Hold on. A sip of coffee. So where did that weight come from? So I was in the military for about 10 years, a little over, and I got hurt and wound up having to go on some medications for anxiety, for agoraphobia and general anxiety disorder, PTSD, all that stuff. So I went on a bunch of medications. One of the major effects, I don't call them side effects, it's an effect of the drug. Side effect just means I'm giving it to you for this. It might also do this. The might also do this is not a side effect. It's an effect of the drug. So one of the effects of the drugs that I was on for my anxiety and all that, caused a slowdown in the metabolism, weight gain, a lot of fat to accumulate, not just subcutaneous, which is your regular fat under your skin, but visceral fat around your organs and stuff like that. Now, I had some, and this is just genetics and the way my body developed. I had some subcutaneous fat. body fat. But the vast majority of my fat was visceral fat. You could tell because you were like, you don't really look fat, but you're this weight. And we did an in body and you have this much muscle mass. So the rest is fat and water. So yeah, I mean, through simple process of elimination, you can infer, you can assume, without making an ass out of you and me, you can assume that the vast majority of the adipose tissue, the fat that was on my body, was visceral fat around my organs. So we really needed to get a hold of that. And I had struggled with that for years. And I, even being incredibly active, never got down past around 280. Okay. So I could never break that threshold, never break that barrier and get down. And was on blood pressure medication because I had really high blood pressure because of my body weight and the strain that it was putting on my circulatory system and my heart. So that is what happens when you are overweight. Not when you're fat, okay? Fat has something to do with it, but it's a math problem. You know what I mean? You are over this weight for your your heart. Okay. So I just put a lift kit on my truck. Okay. I have a Gladiator, a Jeep Gladiator, and I put a 2.5-inch lift kit. So what, this goes somewhere, don't worry. I am now consuming more gas driving my Gladiator than I was before, because now there's this lift kit has more mass. It makes my truck a little bit heavier. Because of that, my engine has to work harder to push my truck through space. If you are overweight and increase the weight of your body, you put on a weight vest, you have adipose tissue, fat, you increase the weight of your body, and your heart has to work harder. The engine has to work harder. So I was on blood pressure medication. But I could never break that. I think I got down to 284 one time, but never, because I remember 285 was a big, like, whoa, I broke 285. This is awesome. And now I think I'm 264 point, like 5.4, like something really low, and I'm about to push over to 263. So he said, hey, my cardiologist, because that's who I go to, not because I have heart problems, but because I didn't want a general practitioner, following my blood pressure. I wanted someone who deals with the heart and deals with, the circulatory system, venous transfer, all that stuff. I wanted them, working on me, right tool, right job, right specialist, right body part. So, you don't go to a proctologist for ear, nose, and throat, right? Oh, that's horrid. But so I went to a cardiologist, great guy. And he said to me, hey, I'm noticing you're overweight. Do you want to go on Wegovy? So I asked him a bunch of questions about it and didn't know much about it. It was starting to hit the market, and wound up going on it right before before it started being in the news everywhere. So yeah, I went on it in May or April of last year. May, I think. So I was still at the University of Florida. Go Gators. And I spoke I had already spoken to the physiology guru there, um, the guy who taught me physiology and advanced physiology, and he also teaches the medical physiology. And I had already spoken to him about the blood pressure medication lisinopril, because we were going over a bunch of things, muscle tissue in blood vessels and stuff like that, and I wanted to know about these mechanisms and how it worked and everything. And he was very helpful. And then when I went on Wegovy, I told him about that, and he was, "Whoa, you're going on Wegovy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going on Wegovy. I'm going to try it out." Um, and we were having a bunch of really charged discussions about it, because he was not very excited about it from a physiologist perspective. So I am going to give you, and I want to have him on later. I'm not going to name him, but I want to have him on, because I kind of want to have this discussion with him out in the sunlight. So from him, and I've looked it up and verified everything that he said, we don't know how Wegovy works. We don't know why it works. We think we know why it works. We have some very clear scientific reasoning for why it works. And I've gone and watched some videos. I think it's Dr. Attia, and he's very specific about the mechanism for how Wegovy and Ozempic work. But according to this professor that I was speaking to, he said, well, yeah, we know it affects that hormone, or we know it affects this transmitter, but we don't know why it affects that transmitter. And we don't know what the long-term ramifications of the effect of that transmitter are. So what we did was we decided, him and I, because he knows the human body, we decided on a plan and a course of action, and I took it to my cardiologist, and he said, you know what, that's actually really smart, and that's something, now that you bring it up, I might actually suggest to my patients. So what our plan was that I was going to go on it for a year, because we didn't know what the long-term effects of the medication were going to be. I was only going to be on it for a year. Whatever weight loss I got in a year, I was going to have to sustain in that 13th month, that month past, and continue on into the future. And, with everyone on board, we had to sit and we had to come up with with some kind of game plan. So what I decided to do, because honestly, even though I'm getting all of this information and this support, this academic and medical support, ultimately the usage of Wegovy and my usage of Wegovy is up to me. It's 100% up to me. I'm not one of those people who the doctor says, take this, and I go on autopilot. And that's one of my biggest criticisms about Wegovy. So what I did, and this is where we really start getting into the meat of what's going on, and what I think is effective use of this drug, and my criticisms of the current structure for how it's given. So I was going to be on it for a year. The first 6 months, I was going to not exercise. I wanted to see what the effects of Wegovy were on me, the subject of my little experiment, without any physical interventions. Okay, I was going to follow my gut, so to speak. And I lost quite a bit of weight. I think in the beginning I lost like 15 pounds within the first couple of months. And then another 10 pounds after in the last 3 of that 6 months. All right, and I did nothing. Now, it was horrible. Why was it horrible? The upset stomach sucked. It was so it's not discomfort. It's just you're just it your stomach is upset. You feel nauseous. I felt nauseous up until the end. And I have an interesting story about that. So I noticed over the 9 months that my son kept asking me, Dad, are you okay? Are you okay? Why? Oh, you don't seem happy. I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong. So, and those of you who suffer with pain, daily pain, um, chronic pain, like rheumatoid arthritis and stuff like that, you will be able to identify with what I'm about to tell you. It wasn't until around the 8th month that I realized the psychological effect, the psychological indirect effect of Wegovy on myself. So I was nauseous the entire way through. But the body has a really great ability to dampen negative sensations over time. Like one of the tricks that I told my son, he stubbed his toe when he was really like a toddler. He stubbed his toe and he smashed the shit out of it. And I remember how upset he was. And I said, Bob, hey kiddo, I'm going to do something that's going to hurt a lot in the beginning, but all of a sudden is going to make it feel all better. And he goes, okay. And I said, give me your foot. And I took my hand and I grabbed his toe and squeezed it. And he yelped, like screamed. And I didn't let go. I didn't like squeeze it for dear life. I just applied quite a bit of pressure to it. And then I counted to 10 and then I let it go. And he said, how did you do that? And I said, Bob, it's really funny how the body is. Sometimes, you got to feel the pain for the pain to go away. And that's basically it. You got to feel the pain for the pain to not be noticed. And over time, I wasn't registering the nausea that I was feeling, but my body was. And everyone around me was, because my mood had become sour, like my stomach. And I've personally noticed in the past 2 weeks how much of a state change behaviorally I've had, how much of a huge change in my mood I've had, that I've just really been able to experience joy again because I don't feel nauseous or have an upset stomach. One of the things, and this is interesting, and I think that sometimes scientists are knuckleheads because it doesn't occur to them. So one of the things with Wegovy, with my upset stomach, I was having in the first couple of weeks, I was like, this is really bad. I don't know what's wrong. And my wife would just turn to me and go, when's the last time you ate? I don't know. And this was like 6 o'clock. I don't know, like this morning. And she's like, that's not nausea from Wegovy. That's nausea because you're hungry. You need to eat something. And I was like, okay. And I would go eat. something small, because you really can't, you don't have an appetite for anything. And all of a sudden, the nausea would go away. And I was like, holy shit. Why isn't this in? Because I'm a nerd. I read that big leaflet, that um Magna Carta that they give you with with the uh with the drug that folds into about 138 pieces. It says nowhere in there that these pains will be hunger pains, and that if you feel nauseous, you should probably eat something. Are you freaking kidding me? What a bunch of assholes. I mean, it's like, and I looked it up, other things on nausea, and they just blame it on the drug. And one of the biggest things you have to do is you have to take your phone and you have to set alarms. If you're taking Wegovy, set an alarm for every 4 to 6 hours and have a meal, and have a high protein meal. You know what I mean? Don't get away from steaks. If you want a burger, have a burger. Hamburger, not cheeseburger. Have a ham sandwich if you want one. But have something that has meat in it, that has protein in it, because it'll satiate you. You won't be hungry anymore, and you'll get protein. Because one of the biggest warnings that they have, that's not in the labeling, but one of the biggest warnings that doctors and clinicians are giving are malnourishment and the loss of lean muscle mass, muscle tissue. Because of this. And they're like, oh, wow, we're having the loss of muscle in it. It's unexplainable. Bullshit. It's because you're not instructing people. And this is where, when I said before, I have a really big problem with the way that they give Wegovy. Wegovy should be given with a triad, okay? Ozempic should be given with a triad. What is that triad? Your primary care physician, the person who's prescribing it, and that should come along with the nutritionist to ensure that you're not losing muscle mass and wasting away, and that you're not becoming malnourished, you assholes. And also a therapist, a licensed therapist. Why? Because this is a behavior altering drug. Regardless of what they say it is, and this is a behavior altering drug. And if you are not getting some type of therapeutic treatment, psychological therapeutic treatment to go along with this, you won't understand the dynamics at play here. You won't understand, because one of the things that I've seen in a bunch of reports on this, both on paper and on video, is that people are on autopilot. They take this, oh, I don't need to do anything. I could just take this drug and lose weight. And they're eating shit, and so I found this out. I had no idea. Some people are drinking, like, a lot. So one of the things that I noticed about it, and this is one of those hidden indications. Indications are the reasons why a drug can be prescribed by the FDA. And one of the indications is for individuals who have problems with alcohol, because apparently it diminishes your tolerance and your what do you call it? Craving for alcohol. I found that to not be the case. Well, halfway. I still had my cravings for a beer, because I like drinking beer. So I get, I'd love to have a beer tonight. That's a craving. That thought as it pops into my head is a craving. So yeah, I still got the cravings for my Guinness. But I reduced the amount of Guinness that I was drinking. I would drink 6 to 8 normally, which sounds like a lot, but I'm a really big guy. Now I drink maybe 4 at most, which is what it comes in, which is really nice. So, but some people are not having the problem with not putting away alcohol, and they're drinking tons of alcohol and not really eating. So they're turning, Wegovy's turning some people into alcoholics. I'm going to get hit for that hard. But my point is, people are not taking in what they should be taking in this triad of a nutrition, of a clinician, doctor, a nutritionist, and a psychologist, a therapist, would really help in ensuring that individuals can go on the drug for the short term, anywhere from 6 to 12 months, and then stay and then come off the drug and maintain that weight loss. So one of the things that I did, I told you guys I had a plan. So my first step was 6 months of just taking the drug, being generally sedentary, and not exercising, not doing any aerobic exercise or strength training. And I lost weight. And I most likely lost muscle mass as well, because I was working out before then, with very, very limited success on weight loss. Hold on. Another drink. And then at the 6 month mark, and on top of that, like I said, my wife was having me be conscientious about when I was eating. So I was making sure I was eating at specific times throughout the day, at least twice. And I was observing my portion. That's the biggest damn thing out there. So generally, the inside of your stomach is about the size of your fist. It can grow larger. Go to Cracker Barrel, eat the entire thing. Go to Chili's, get an appetizer, and eat your entire meal. This fist will turn into 2 fists or 3. But generally, the inside of your stomach is about the size of a fist. Okay? So I became very conscientious of eating within that limitation, eating within that boundary of that approximate size. So what I would do is, and I'm going to piss some people off. I love this. I would go, so I started working out, right? I would get done working out and say, I need some protein. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Burger King. Yes, I went and got fast food, but I had a plan. What did I do? I ordered Whopper Juniors with no cheese, no bacon. I actually didn't get them with tomatoes and onions either, because they give me indigestion. But a Whopper Junior is about that big. I would get maybe 1, sometimes 2, which was right about the size of a fist. 2 of them is about the size of my fist. And I would eat those and be fine. Why? Because I was eating very basic. I was making sure I got enough protein, and I wasn't really eating any fats whatsoever. I was staying away from fats. I did another thing, and I got away from diet sodas. All right. So I was using in my coffee stevia. And before that, I had used Sweet and Low, or whichever would be there, like Splenda or whatever. So I've actually, that guru, that physiology guru, we've been having this big, huge powwow about reducing the effectiveness of insulin by drinking fake sweeteners. So basically what you're doing, that's another story all in itself, and that's going to be another video. But essentially, if you keep telling your body that it's getting some sugar for energy, and you instead give it Diet Coke which has no sugar, because digestion starts in the mouth. Huh. Did you know that? Um, and some of it involves signals to the brain and to a bunch of the systems in the body to tell the body, hey, get ready for sugar. I just tasted something sweet. This is going to be awesome. We're going to have so much energy. And then it gets nothing because your coffee had Truvia in it, or your coffee had Sweet and Low, or you ate a sugar-free cookie, that all of a sudden those insulin receptors turn off. Wow, that's crazy. So I actually started bringing sugar back into my diet. Why? Because at the 6-month mark, I went back to the gym and I went heavy. And I will tell you, working out on Wegovy is one of the worst experiences of my life. I have never felt like I was going to throw up during a workout more times than when I was on Wegovy. And my workouts are generally pretty high intensity, high volume, high load. But there were times when I would just drink my pre-workout and I would feel like I was going to throw up before my workout even started. There's a lot of stuff going on with Wegovy that makes what they tell you to do very difficult. I did it anyways, just because I'm a stubborn son of a bitch. And I said, well, I'm going to work out regardless of whether I get sick. I will complete my workout. And I was doing it started, I would say the first 2 months, I was doing 3 workouts, 7 exercises. And then this past month, the last month I was on Wegovy, I went from working out 4 days a week. 2 of those were 7 exercises. 2 of those were 5 exercises. And the days that had 5 exercises, I was swimming a half mile both of those days. And the weight just, the fat started burning itself off. What's interesting is about 3 months ago, I stopped losing weight. So I hit 32 pounds lost. And what I think happened, so there's a couple of things. One, they say there's a Wegovy plateau, a barrier that you hit. And that might have been the case. I might have hit that. But there's also, what do you call it? Basically, I was building muscle. Okay. Protein synthesis. I was building muscle, and the muscle that I was building was offsetting the fat that I was losing. So I was losing fat and gaining muscle, but it was evening out, and it was looking like it was time to come off of it. So at 9 months, we cut it. And I'm very happy to say that I am, the conscientiousness that I have of what sizes I should be eating, the alarms that I've set for when I should be eating, overcome the hunger pangs that I have every once in a while, not very much. So I personally feel if I maintain this after coming off Wegovy, I shouldn't have any trouble with my weight at all. It'll require, but I was never on autopilot while taking it. And I think that's the biggest disservice that the medical industry, because it's not just pharmaceutical companies, it's the healthcare providers too. The pharmaceutical industry puts you on autopilot by giving you Wegovy and sending you out the door. If you guys have any questions about this, please reach out to me. You can find me through the website. You can find me through YouTube, all of that. I am more than happy to discuss this with anyone one-on-one. If they're scared to come off of it because of all the horror stories they've heard and the news really loves, if it bleeds, it leads. They love telling the horror stories. But I think that there's a reasonable way to take this medication for the short term. And I'm prepared to go through this journey with you guys. I'm prepared to go through this journey with whoever wants to reach out to me. And we'll see where it goes. All right, that's all I've got for you guys for this one. It was, I don't know why. I think it was embarrassing to tell you guys I was on Wegovy. But I needed the help. And that's the biggest challenge, is knowing when to ask for help. So if you listened all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. I don't know that I did a really good job of, I think it was meandering, but I hope you followed along. All right, yeah, that's all I got for you guys. This podcast, as I said in the beginning, was brought to you by Sea and Land Fitness. Head on over there, www.sandlfit.com. You can get, and I got him in the background if you're watching on video, we got all the hats, some of the multi-cams I can show you, but they haven't come in yet. And then we got beanies because it's been cold outside, so get your head covered. And everyone that I've gotten these for has absolutely loved them. So head on over to the website. And we got the multi-cam ones coming. I'm actually wearing the shirt. I'm going to turn around. Hold on. And I'm looking to make new shirts that'll be coming out soon. And we got programs and we got all kinds of stuff. Oh, I finished the 3-tiered program. The member site is going to be set up. I got some sponsors. It looks like we're going to be doing some deals for some sponsors, for some equipment, and might be doing something with the Army, the Navy, and the Marine Corps that you'll see in the member sites. And we're going to start shooting the videos in the spring. And yeah, so that's it. That's all I got for you. All right, later.